Yo, what is up, everybody? So, I had been thinking a lot about wars in America. Well, not in America, but American wars that we've had in the past and things of that nature. Whoa, something just fell from the tree. And I had thought, we had World War One. I don't know all of the history behind World War One in particular, but World War One, the Allies or the Western world, the modern Western world won, right? And then World War Two, in quotes, America won. But besides those wars, I started thinking, why did we have the Korean War, for one? So that's the first war that we're really going to be talking about here. And not in too much detail because I don't really know the history and the facts and all that, because I honestly don't really care and it's not important to this topic. But we had the Korean War, we had the Vietnam War. I think we had probably some other like minor military actions and things like that. But then we also had Desert Storm, and then we had the Iraq War. So, and then now we're sending a bunch of aid to Ukraine. So this is 5 in quote wars that we've had, or any kind of battles, whatever, however you want to look at it. And it's really interesting to me because we've had all of these military actions and nothing's really come about them except for dead people, essentially. So I guess that will probably be somewhat what the title of this video is going to be, is American wars. I don't know how I should put it, but American wars result in dead people and nothing more. Yeah, I guess that would be how it is. So, like I said, I'm not really going to go through and do any kind of history or facts on this, but I kind of just want to think about it in general, of what has happened with these different types of wars like this. And I was watching some videos too of our soldiers in during the Iraqi war and our invasion in Afghanistan, Middle East, whatever. And a lot of our soldiers were actually very brutal, and a lot of the people in these Middle Eastern countries actually suffered a lot. Which, yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna go really into detail about it, but I think you can imagine different kinds of war atrocities and things like that. And it's kind of crazy to me because these fully grown American adult men, soldiers, were beating up and tying up Middle Eastern boys. And yeah, it was definitely something, a different perspective, I guess, and something that I think is important to understand and realize, that when you're in a war situation, none of it is good. So first off, we don't need wars because we don't need Americans dying and any people dying. Even when we went to Vietnam and the Viet Cong and things like that, we don't need people dying, first off. And second off, all of these wars, what did they result? What were the end results? And did anything come about from them good? I mean, we essentially lost. Well, I think the Korean War, you could say that we technically won that, right? Because it made North and South Korea, but we've had problems with North Korea for ever since, right? So did we really win? Probably say no. And plus, how many thousands of people died also? And then more so, I'm talking about like the Vietnam War, though, because Vietnam War, a lot of atrocities happened when Americans went over there. And basically we ruined a lot of people's lives who were Vietnam. And yeah, we just like did a lot of like slaughtering and things like that of civilians and whatever else, which is what we did in the Iraqi War too, or in the Middle East for Desert Storm, and in the 2000, after the attacks on the Twin Towers and things like that. So it's really interesting to me, the waste of resources that we've given to all these wars just to make certain politicians pockets bigger. In particular, I know like Bush's family is really big into military, is what I've heard. I mean, I don't know for a fact whether that's true or not, and it's kind of irrelevant, but that money, all that money is going somewhere either way, and whoever is the owner of the military is the ones who are benefiting. And then you kind of wonder, well, how much money they have and how much influence can they actually be placing on getting people to go over into other countries to continue wars and things like that. And then they have, like I said in my other videos, where you aren't free, the military can have a draft and then essentially force all these men to go and fight for the military anyways, if they want to. So even if you guys didn't want to, you go to jail, and most people are pretty compliant. So if all of us refused, then they can't have a war, right? Because we would all, I mean, they can't put it, well, first off, they can't put us all in jail, but they could starve us, and they could say, well, hey, we have these jobs of getting these people to comply, so you want a job that will let you be a police officer and force people to comply, or be in the military? Sure, yeah, definitely, I want to feed my family. So but yeah, these wars have basically been something that our governments have used, in particular the United States government, because I'm talking about these wars that we've had. But they've been wars that have been used to essentially send American men off to fight. And they say that we are fighting for our own freedom and to stop spread of communism and things like of this nature, but the reality of the situation is they are essentially just sending our men off to die. But people don't understand that because of what we've been taught, and the teachings go pretty deep because it's generational, and it's what you're told your whole life, essentially, right? So, but when you really break it down and think about it, it kind of makes sense that we're just being sent off to die, and it's just another mechanic that they use on top of with work to make you feel like oppressed and like you're constantly in like a state of survival. You have to constantly fight, and you can't really think for yourself because you're so worried about whether or not you'll survive and you can take care of your family and things like that. But yeah, when we were in Desert Storm 2, nothing really happened. Countries in the Middle East that we always went to and then pulled out of, they all ended up falling back into chaos, like what has happened with the Taliban. Well, supposedly, I actually don't think right now with the takeover from the in quote Taliban or whatever in the Middle East right now, I actually don't. I think that the country is beginning to stabilize, but you have to understand too that like who is funding these groups of people, and are these groups of people are being funded? Are they sending out young men to terrorize the country? Because a lot of people, at least what I've seen on YouTube, and maybe this is too anecdotal, but when people travel to other countries, I talk with a lot of people, a lot of the times the people in these other countries, especially countries that we see in the news that are bad and whatever of that nature, they actually are really chill, and they're just normal people like everybody else, you know. They're just regular old citizens, and they just want to live and have a good life for their family as well, like we do. So, but yeah, I think in order to really understand this whole idea and concept is you really have to break it down and think, what did the American people and the people of the world get from these conflicts that we've been in? Has any of these wars really helped the world and society? I mean, maybe developing South Korea into a democracy, maybe that has done something for some people, but have all of these things that have happened in the world, which I would say have been organized anyways, so it's kind of irrelevant whether they were good or bad because they're organized by the government, but have they been worth the lives that have been lost would be my main question. And my answer to that would be no. Not to those people. Their sacrifice and the lives that a lot of them lost, especially if they were drafted, it was not worth it to them because they didn't have a choice. So, yeah. Basically, their in quote sacrifices were essentially for nothing because there never really was something that needed to be sacrificed in the beginning. And America has full control over you anyways, so you were sacrificing yourself to a government that had owned you your whole life anyways, so